Okay, so let's start. As we were saying, the today's session is dedicated for the travel processing office role, and this TB10 is the one that we had before this cluster 5 implementation. And with this implementation, with the cluster 5, we are introducing a new role that is the TB20, the TPO non-commercial. Okay. So what are we implementing in this project? What are we changing? So starting from 15 June, starting from 10 days ago, a few more types of travelers are using Umoja as a system to support all the travel requests. Some of these new travelers, like for example national staff and IUPs, have been granted access to the employee self-service. So both national staff and IUPs are new users of the portal, meaning that they have been granted with the Unite ID account. They can log in into the employee self-service and they can raise their own travel request. So before 15th of June, the only travelers using Umoja travel module were international staff. Okay, and other type of travelers like national staff were kind of pending, and that's what we are doing now with this cluster 5 implementation. We are allowing national staff to raise their own travel request, and the same thing for individual uniform personnel. So these two traveler types have access to the portal to raise their own travel requests. Then we have other traveler types that, even though we are going to manage their travel requests in Umoja, they will not be able to raise travel requests by themselves. So all their travel requests will be done by the travel administrator roles, because these traveler types don't have access to the portal. And which are these traveler types? So within the new traveler types that don't have access to the portal, we have uniform personnel. So all uniform personnel except the ones that are considered individual. Are you aware of the difference between an IUP and other types of uniform personnel? Can anybody give me an example through the chat about IUPs? So what could be considered an IUP in the in Umoja? Because here we are differentiating IUPs and other uniform personnel. Any idea? Okay, nothing. All right, so what do we mean by IUPs? So IUPs, by IUPs we mean, for example, let me close it. All right. Okay. All right, so thank you. I saw your comments. So very good, Aminata, Nelson. Yes. So IUPs basically are the uniform personnel that are deployed with a commercial ticket, meaning military observers, UN police. These are the ones that are considered IUPs, and these are the ones that are being granted access to the portal. And then all the other military personnel are uniform personnel, are considered uniform personnel, like for example contingents, troops. These uniform personnel, the ones that are deployed using a charter flight, they don't have access to the portal, and all their travel requests will be done by the travel administrators on their behalf. Okay. Then with this project, we are also implementing the travel module for UMBs, for consultants, for individual contractors, and other non-staff like meeting participants, fellows, and judges. So now we have a bunch more travelers that are going to be using Umoja to manage their travel requests. So the categories on the top, they will be able to raise their own travel request, and the categories appearing here in red, everything will be done on their behalf by the travel administrators. Okay. All right. So this is what we are implementing in the project, right? These new traveler categories. Then let's talk a little bit. So we are going to be focusing today on the changes, right? So keep in mind that most of the functionality, if you were already a TPO and if you are already familiar with the solution for international staff, basically the roles and features available in the portal are going to be the same. So there are not going to be so many changes and differences. So whatever you are familiar with, most of it will remain as it is. Let me go back because Dominic is asking me to repeat the difference between IUPs and uniform personnel. So basically, let me try to write something here. Let's see if I can. So basically, IUPs, okay. Oh. I was trying to write something down, but somehow I cannot. Okay, so I have to. All right, so basically IUPs. So IUPs are all the military staff that is deployed and repatriated to the mission using a commercial flight. And examples are military observers, UN police, staff officers, right? So all these, all the military non-staff that is deployed using a commercial flight. And the rest, all the other uniform personnel that is normally deployed using a charter flight is considered uniform personnel but not IUPs. And examples of those that are not IUPs are contingents and troops. All right, Dominic, does it make sense? Okay. You're welcome. So we were saying that we are going to be focusing on the changes. So basically, there are not so many changes, and today we will focus on what's different, what's being changed as part of this project. So one of these few changes is the introduction of the TB20 role, the TPO non-commercial. Before this implementation, we only had in the system in Umoja one TPO role that used to be the TB10. TB10 is the normal TPO, and before this project, they were responsible for approving all types of travel requests. So they were the only travel processing officers. As part of this implementation, we are introducing this TB20 role that will manage all travel requests that are non-commercial. Okay, so regardless the travel category, no matter if it's official travel or if it's uniform personnel travel, if the selected mode of travel in the itinerary is a non-commercial, right? You know that when the travel administrator or the traveler is indicating in the itinerary the mode of travel, they have to indicate the mode of travel, right, for the different legs in the itinerary. They have to indicate if it's going to be commercial aircraft, UN aircraft, and so on. If the itinerary does not include any commercial ticket, it will go to the TB20, to the TPO non-commercial. Right? Why are we introducing this TB20 role in the mission? So remember that as part of this implementation, we are making available this solution to national staff, UMBs, uniformed personnel, and what is expected is that most of the trips for those categories of travelers are going to be mainly within mission and using non-commercial mode of transportation. And that's we are expecting a lot of travel requests for within mission non-commercial. That's why we are splitting now the requests that are commercial from the ones that are non-commercial to speed up the process for this frequent within mission using non-commercial means of transportation. Okay. So the mode of travel that are basically considered commercial are 01, the commercial aircraft, and the 07 rail. These are the two modes of transportation that are mainly considered in the system as commercial. And they are considered commercial because when the traveler or the travel administrator select those, normally there is an involvement with the travel vendor to purchase the tickets. All right. So regarding the TB20 role, regarding the TPO non-commercial, the screens are very similar. There are only a few changes. For example, in the estimated cost screen, is the airfare ticket cost, transaction fees. So this type of expenses will not be allowed for them because remember that TB20, they don't purchase any ticket. And these expenses are only related to commercial tickets. So it doesn't make sense for the TB20 to be able to add these expenses. Okay, so remember this is in the estimated cost screen. Okay. What else? In the screens, you have also an option to indicate tickets to be issued through, right? And normally, if it's a TB20, the default option will be tickets not provided by the UN. So yes, ticket not provided by the UN because there is no ticket to be purchased from a travel vendor. Right, so remember this screen as a TPO, so the option that will be available for TB20s are going to be ticket not provided by the UN. And in the estimated cost screen, service provider, itinerary, validating carrier, and class of service will be not mandatory as for TB10s, as for the regular TPO. Okay. So then we'll have a look also at the system, and we will repeat the same thing just to make it clear for you. And then we used to have the approve and the approve and award button. Okay, for TB20s, only the approve will be available because remember that the approve and award, the only difference is that an email notification is sent to the vendor to purchase the tickets. For TB20s, there is no change. Okay, so so there is no email to be sent to the vendors. So only the approve button is available for the TB20. All right. So let me log in into the system. Okay. So I'm logging in as a TB20. Okay. Just for those of you that are completely new into the TPO role, so that you are aware of the changes. Okay, so I'm going to log in as a TPO. All right. So where should I go? So I should go to my Travel Shipment Claims Officer tab, and from there, okay, this is the work center. Okay, so here you have the work center for the different documents. And basically, as a TPO, you will be going to the Approval Work Center for travel requests, right? So as a TPO, you are not involved in shipments, and you are not involved in the reviewal of the expense report. So basically, you are involved in the approval of the travel request. Either you are a TB10 or a TB20, you will always go to the Approval Work Center for travel requests. So I'm going to click on the Approval Work Center for travel requests. And in the Work Center, so in the Work Center is where you can see all the pending items. So you have two different tabs, one for pending items, items that are pending approval, and one tab for completed items. So if you already approved the travel request, it will go into the second tab. So this second tab is for completed items. The first one is the one for pending, where you can see all the items, all the travel requests that are pending your review and your approval. Okay. So you can, from here, you can see all the requests. So we can see the travel request number. You can see the index number of the traveler, the name, the type of travel. So in this case, it's both travel requests are official business. Okay, we can see the details, the origin, the different details regarding the travel request. We can review and approve. We can select any of those two lines and click on review and approve to see the details of the travel. So the Work Center, is the same. Either, no matter if you are a TB10 or a TB20, the details you will see in your Work Center are going to be the same. Okay, but the system will be displaying in your Work Center the travel request that you have been mapped, and you are able to approve. So you will see, if you are mapped, for example, to AMMI's Travel Processing Office, you will see only those that were raised with AMMI's as Travel Processing Office. Okay, so Dominic is saying that my voice is breaking. What about the others? Can you still hear me? Hello? I may have lost connectivity. Can you still hear me? Okay, thank you, Rene. All right, so maybe it's a problem from the other side. All right, so we opened a travel request. The details on the travel request remain the same. So in this case, the only difference that we can see that is part of this implementation is that the type of traveler, in this case, it's a volunteer, right? So in this case, this travel request for staff member with an index number 70176, it's for a volunteer. So before 15th June, the system wasn't capable of doing travel requests for volunteers, for example. So from now on, from 15 June on, you will receive in your inbox travel requests for UN volunteers, for consultants, for national staff, and for all the other categories we explained before. Okay. No changes in the information you will see. So you have the itinerary. Here in the itinerary, this is what we were mentioning before. This mode of travel, it's important. In the itinerary, the travel administrator for UMBs will need to indicate the mode of travel for each leg. So if the mode of travel is either commercial aircraft or rail, then the trip will go to the TB10, to the commercial TPO. If none of the legs are commercial, then the travel request will be considered non-commercial and it will go to the TB20 as TPO, because that trip will be considered non-commercial. No ticket is required from any vendor. So everything is driven by the mode of travel selected in the itinerary. When we click on the additional data, which are the other changes or which are the other differences that we can see as part of this implementation? The deductions, the advance, all the other things remain the same. You will see that in the travel processing office, there are going to be 2 different TPO offices for each mission. So if we use the search button and you search for your mission, for example, AMIS, you will see that from 15 June, there are 2 different TPO offices for each mission. So the first one being the one that already existed before 15 June, and the second one, the non-commercial. So this non-commercial is where all the TB20 TPOs are mapped to. And based on the mode of travel, the system will default the travel request to the commercial TPO office or to the non-commercial TPO office. So this is how the system have been designed. So based on the mode of travel, the system will default either the normal TPO office or the non-commercial TPO office. Okay. If the travel request is non-commercial, the default will be ticket not provided by the UN. And in the enter estimated cost, you as a TB20, if you are TB20, if you are playing a TB20 role for non-commercial tickets, you will not have to indicate the service provider because there is no vendor involved. You will not have to indicate the carrier and the class of service. Okay, but the IATA codes are always required, right? So the IATA codes are basically used for reporting purposes in BI. Okay, so you know this green initiative in the UN to check for the carbon consumption, right? And there is a specific report in BI to check for the carbon consumption in all our trips. So based on this field, based on the IATA fields, the report in BI will be able to calculate how many trips and what's going to be the distance and the carbon consumption for each mission. Okay, so you as a TPO office, as a TPO officer, you should be indicating and changing the IATA codes accordingly. Okay, and there is a specific job aid to explain what you should be doing in case of cancellation, in case of an amendment, what you should be indicating here in the IATA codes. All right. Any comment on that? Any comment on the so service provider, validating carrier, and class of service are optional, okay? But the IATA codes, even if it's you are using UN flight, they should be always indicated by the TPO. So pay attention to this field, to the field for IATA codes. So if there is a flight involved, no matter if it's a UN flight or a commercial ticket, as a TPO, you should always indicate here the itinerary with all the connection points following the IATA standards. Okay, so you should be indicating the codes for the airport, okay, based on the IATA standards. And as I was saying, for further details on this part, on the IATA codes, there is a job aid. Okay, so we can always go to the Umoja website. Okay, and in the part for the job aids, okay, where all the job aids are, there is a section for the travel-related job aids. We click on there, and in the TPO, so we have the general section, okay, about travel. Then we have job aids on the BI reports, okay, and there is one, the one that we were talking before, this greenhouse gas report. This one is the one that is extracting the data from that field, from the IATA Codes field. Okay, and in the TPO Office section, if we go to the bottom, there is a section for the TPO officers. This one. So we have a section for the TPOs. So here you have all the job aids that are important for you as a travel processing officer. Okay, you have an explanation about the TB20 role, the TPO non-commercial. You have explanation about combining different travel categories, the amendment process. Okay, so you have here different job aids, and one of them is the how to record itineraries in the system. So this how to record itineraries in the system, if we click on it, it will explain how you should be recording, how you should be indicating the IATA codes in that field. So, and what do you do in case you have an amendment or in case you have to cancel the entire trip? Okay, so here it will explain you how you should be indicating the airport, to use the dash to separate the different airports, and so on. So please remember to have a look at the available job aids. All right. So basically, not so many changes in terms of approval of travel requests. On that part, I'm gonna go back a little bit to the presentation because I want to talk about another thing that is changing as part of this implementation. So we have to talk a little bit about what's new for uniformed personnel, because that also involves you as a TPO officer. So as a TPO officer, you should understand that now there is a different travel category that is the one used to deploy and to repatriate uniformed personnel. So this deployment and repatriation travel that is always done by the travel administrator on behalf role is where we have the group travel concept. So you should be aware that from 15 June, now in your approval work centers, you should you could receive travel request that corresponds to the deployment or repatriation of a group of IUPs. This group travel request might have related shipments and related expense reports. And we will talk about that a little bit more later on to see how that works. Then IUPs can also travel on official travel, okay, and in case they need to travel within mission using non-commercial means, the IUP can raise the travel request by themselves. Okay, so they can raise within mission travel requests when no commercial ticket is involved. They can do that by using the portal, and if the travel request is outside mission area, then they will need the help of the travel administrator role to raise the travel request on their behalf. But these point 2 and 3, there is no much difference for you as a TPO. So the official travel, no matter if it's within mission or outside mission area, your role as a TPO is going to be very similar, because you will receive requests to travel uniformed personnel, but the way to handle them is very similar as for an international staff or for any other traveler. The type of, or the travel category that is changing a little bit the way you work is number 1. This deployment and repatriation travel, you need to understand how this group travel functionality works. Okay, and that's why I'm going to spend a little bit more time to explain to you how this group travel works, because it will also have an impact in the way you see things in the system and in the way you will indicate, for example, the total amount for the ticket in the travel request. All right. Okay, so let's now talk about this deployment and repatriation travel for uniformed personnel. So now we are going to talk about this deployment and repatriation. Okay, so we always need, as for any other traveler, we always need an index number and an HR minimaster. But what is different in this deployment and repatriation travel is the concept of group. So the travel administrator, let's say that they need to travel, let's say 10 uniformed personnel that are traveling using the same itinerary with the same baggage entitlements and so on. The travel administrator, instead of creating one travel request for each uniformed personnel, travel administrator will be able to create one unique group travel request and include in that travel request the entire group of IUPs. So travel administrator can raise one unique group travel request. This unique group travel request will go for the TSA's approval, and TSAs will receive in their inbox the group travel request, and they can approve, as a TSA, they can approve the entire group. So no need to approve each traveler individually. So they can approve it as a group. By the way, travel administrator, they will have to indicate the details of each uniformed personnel. They will need to indicate, as always, the cost assignment, who's paying for that trip, the itinerary details, and they will need to indicate the estimated cost. Right, so the travel administrator will need to indicate the estimated cost for the itinerary. Sorry, for the entire group. You, as a TPO, you will receive the group travel request, and you will have, it's normally in this deployment and repatriation, there is always a commercial ticket involved. So you will receive the estimate, the airfare ticket estimate provided by the travel administrator to travel the entire group. And as a TPO, you will contact the travel vendor, and you will get the final estimate for the entire group, and you will indicate the final estimate, what's going to be the price to pay, or to purchase the ticket for all the uniformed personnel included in that group. Okay, so before you approve the group travel request, everything is managed as a group. From that moment on, so after you approve the group travel, then everything else is done individually, meaning that after you approve the group travel request to deploy or to repatriate a group of IUPs, the system will create one individual TR number for each traveler, for each uniform personnel. And that's done by the system automatically after you click on approve the group travel. So before you approve it, you approve the group travel, there are no individual travel requests. You can return the group travel request for revision. You can ask the travel administrator to change whatever details are needed, or they can even remove uniform personnel from the group. But after you approve the group travel, the system will create individual travel requests, and after that moment, all the changes, all the processes will be done individually for each traveler. For example, the vendor will send the invoices to pay for each ticket, okay, because each traveler will have their own ticket, and even the shipments and even the expense report will be managed individually for each traveler, for each uniform personnel. So the travel administrator, once the uniform personnel have been deployed or repatriated, travel administrator will have to raise the individual expense reports for each traveler. Okay, and the expense report process remains the same. Okay, then we will see this how it looks in the system. But basically, travel request process is managed as a group, and from the moment you approve the group travel request, everything else is managed individually. Shipment request, invoices from the vendor, expense reports, amendments, everything is managed individually. In here you have an example of the email that is automatically sent to the travel agency once you as a TPO, you approve a group travel request. So in this example, the group travel request was for 11 travelers, okay? And in here we can see the details of each 11 travelers with the index numbers, the name, the birth date, gender, and we can even see here the travel request number automatically generated by the system after you approved the group travel request. Okay, so there is one travel request for each traveler. So the system is generating unique TR numbers for each traveler. You can see that the system has generated one unique travel request number for each of the 11 travelers. Okay, so we have 11 travelers, and the vendor will receive the cost or the cost for to pay for all the different travelers. So $1,500 for the ticket of the entire group, right? So is that part clear? Okay. All right. So before we move ahead, let's see how that group travel concept will look like in the system. So I'm gonna log off. Okay. Unfortunately, in the training environment, I don't have any example of group travel for TPO, but I have one group travel pending certifying officer approval. So their work center is going to be very similar to what you will see in your work center. So I'm going to log in as a certifying officer. Okay. Give me a second. All right. And I'm gonna go to the Work Center for travel requests. And the Work Center is gonna be very similar, but there I can show to you how a group travel request will look like. Can you still hear me? Okay, thank you. Okay, sorry. I went to the expense report Work Center. Let me go back to the travel request Work Center. All right. So you can see here, I'm gonna try to make it a little bit bigger. So you can see, I mean, this is the Work Center for a certifying officer, but you, as a TPO, you will have the same type of Work Center, and you can see that each line is slightly different. So let me try to highlight it. So the first one, it looks a little bit weird, right? There are some fields that they are empty, right? So these fields for the first line, it seems they are empty. And we even received some questions from the missions saying that there was a problem in the system, okay, because they cannot see the index number, the traveler name, employee group, employee subgroup, and even the travel request number. So these three appearing here is the travel request number. You can see that is very different, right? The last three travel requests and the first one. The reason is because the first line corresponds to a group travel. That's why the system is not indicating the index number of the traveler, because in this group travel request, there are different travelers included. There is not only one travel. And even if we go to the travel category, the last three travel requests are official business travel, as you can see. And in the first one, it's a uniform personnel, meaning it's a travel request to deploy or to repatriate a group of uniform personnel. Okay. So if we open this type of travel request, if I click on Review and Approve, as you will do with your TPO role, we will see that the information displayed is slightly different. So in this group travel request, the system should indicate the list of travelers, and there might be other options related to the deployment and the repatriation of the uniform personnel. So we can see here that there are some different options. So we can see that in this case, this travel request is for a repatriation of uniform personnel. We have some shipment details. We can even see if the traveler is carrying a weapon. And down below, we have the list of travelers. And we can see the index number of the travelers, the full name, the type of uniform personnel. So both of them are UN police. Okay, and here we can see the travel request. So this travel request number is the number 50 is the travel request number that will be generated by the system after you as a TPO, you approve that group travel request. The group travel request number, it's appearing at the top. So if we scroll up, the group travel request number is this one. It's the group TR number is number 3. So this is the number of the group travel. All right. So let me scroll down. So as a TPO, you will see the list of travelers, the type of travel, then itinerary. You can see that there is only one itinerary for the entire group. So all of them should be traveling in the same flight, meaning with at least in the same dates and from the same departure city and arrival city. If we go to the additional data, there is one thing you need to especially take a look at, that in the estimated cost, this estimated cost here, so this estimated cost that was indicated by the travel administrator represents the cost to travel the 2 uniform personnel included in this travel request. So in this case, 4,000 is the estimated amount to travel the uniform personnel. So afterwards, as a TPO, after you contact the vendor, you will have to indicate the final cost to travel the entire group. Okay, so this is changing. So in this, for a group travel, you have to indicate as a TPO the final cost to travel the entire group. Make sure that you as a TPO, you indicate the cost not for each individual, but for the entire group if we are talking about deployment and repatriation. All right. Okay. And then the rest remains the same. So the cost assignment and all the other details remain the same. So you only have to take special attention to the estimated cost for the entire group, and in your work center, the lines that appear without index, without the details of the traveler, and the travel type, if uniform personnel, is because they correspond to deployment and repatriation travel. So this is basically the change for uniform personnel. Then for UMBs and other non-staff, basically all categories, all these travelers will be using official travel, so they can use official travel. You will receive requests for official travel types. And then entitlement, this R&R travel, you can have UMBs traveling on R&R, so you might receive R&R travel requests from UMBs. And for appointment, you might receive appointment travel requests coming from consultants, because consultants might be also entitled to travel, and they might also be entitled for a ticket when they are appointed. Okay. For official travel, nothing changes, so the process is the one you are used to have in the system, so no changes. Travel request reviewed and approved by certifying officers and by TPOs, and the spend report the same, TSAs and travel claims processors. So no changes on the official travel part. Same thing for R&R travel. There are no changes. So if you are familiar with the current process for international staff for R&R travel, the same thing applies for UMBs. Remember that we have three options. So I'll be sending to you this presentation, and if you have questions about how R&R works, that is the same process that is currently in place for international, you can have a look at this job aid. So for R&R in missions that are providing free UN transportation to the R&R destination, in here you have the job aid. For R&R in missions that are working with the lump sum option, in here you have the job aid. And for missions working with the ticket option, you have in here the job aid. So there are three different options for the R&R: free UN transportation, lump sum, and ticket. But with this project, the only thing that we are changing is that now R&R is not only for international staff, but it's also for UMBs. HR, the same thing. We are not changing the process. We are only including a new traveler that is going to be consultants. But the process, the HR appointment process is the same. So travel administrator will raise the request. It will go to the HR partner, afterwards to the TSA, and lastly to the TPO to purchase the ticket. And after the staff member has reached the mission, they will be able to raise the expense report that will be reviewed and approved by the certifying officer and by the travel claims processor. Okay. So that were the topics that I wanted to talk about in this session. Okay, I didn't get many questions or comments. We still have some time for comments, questions, so feel free to unmute yourself if you want to add anything or ask some questions. Now you have time. I'll be sharing the presentation by email. So in case you prefer to ask any specific question or any thing that is more particular to your mission, you can always do it by email if you prefer. Okay, so as you wish, you have either now time for questions, comments, or you can always address the questions or specific concerns by email.